Sifu is a kung fu beat-em-up developed by Sloclap and released in February of 2022. Combining an explosive kung fu combat system with a revenge-driven narrative makes for a lethal Indie Game of the Year contender. This is Sifu. Sifu's combat system clearly received the most development time in its shows. Packed with combinations, weapon attacks, interactable environment attacks, focus moves, and over 24 techniques you'll be unlocking as you kick and punch your way through the game. Hits feel genuinely impactful, partially thanks to the great work from the audio team, more on that later, but also to the animation team. Having mo-capped all of their fight moves from a Pac-Mei kung fu expert, attacks feel authentic and pack a real punch when time slows down to show the climax of your strike. Seeing as combat is 95% of the gameplay, it's nice having not only high quality animations, but impressively a large amount of them as well. Similar to Sekiro, attacks, perfect parries, and dodge counters reduce the enemy's guard meter, allowing you to finish the enemy with the aforementioned finishers. I enjoyed this feature massively in Sekiro, and its implementation here. However, Sloclap took it a step further with a unique dodge system. Using the left analog stick, which feels good in itself, the player can slip punches and step over leg sweeps, avoiding all damage to their health meter and guard meter. It's a really unique and gratifying defense mechanic that feels good to pull off and is impressive visually. The moves can be unlocked, thanks to your father's mystical medallion, after death, or upon completing a mission. All of these skills give you a new move with its own animation as opposed to boosting your damage. The combat system is a triumph, and should be studied by other combat developers for depth, variety of options, impact, authentic fight animations, and fun. Sifu makes you feel like a kung fu master in your very own action movie. Sifu is a revenge story, having you take the role of a kung fu practitioner whose father, Sifu, has been killed by a former student named Yang. Having somehow survived the night of Yang's attack, you spend the next 8 years training and planning your revenge. Playing through the game's 5 levels, you'll come up against the 5 core members of Yang's inner circle, responsible for your father's death. Within these missions are collectible clues that make up your detective board. Some of these might be keys or codes, allowing you to bypass certain stages of a mission, while some of them shine more light on the 5 members you're looking to kill. I really like the implementation of the detective board. It gives meaning to the collectibles while adding layers to the narrative that give the player a new perspective. Sifu is a satisfying vengeance tale, but turns into something more should the player take the time to fully collect these clues. The player character is easy to empathize with, and while not having pages and pages of dialogue, his interactions with NPCs are enjoyable and can be dictated by the player. While this game could have worked as a short vengeance flick, Sifu takes a step further and includes its own lore and character backstories and successfully delivers them without ramming it down the player's throat. Sifu's combat system is elevated by the creative sound design behind strikes, blocks, and dodges. While easy to overlook, this is what truly connects the player to the action. Opting for fantasy over realism, punches and kicks sound like hammers, or the dodge makes a cool whoosh sound as if being captured in slow motion. It completely fits in with Sifu's world and makes the combat system flow in a series of indicator sounds that let the player know to push the attack or take a more defensive approach. Not only combat sounds, but also environmental sounds have been given plenty of attention. The pulsing music of the nightclub missions grounds you in the level and can ground you further with the haptic feedback for PlayStation 5 players. The soundtrack, paired with the environmental audio, is top-notch. Heavily inspired by Chinese culture, we have some amazing orchestral pieces and battle music. Just take a listen to this opening music and try and tell me you don't want to play Sifu. that's obvious about Sifu fairly early into the game is the developer's love of cinema and its heavy inspiration for not only situation the player finds themselves in, but also for visual design. The corridor scene from Old Boy inspired a camera change, allowing the player to live out that scene for themselves. An opportunity that could have been missed if not for the dynamic camera. Snake into the Eagle's shadow inspired the deep red backdrop of the game's tutorial. There are plenty more references that show a conscientious effort to take some of the best kung fu visuals and implementing them while not having them break the game's immersion. Its low polygraphic style allows for the colour to shine through. However, each mission has its own colour palette. It's not as flat as this is the red mission, this is the green mission. Each stage contributes to the target's philosophy and their role to play in Yang's gang. Fajar is an unhinged botanist that creates drugs from plants, and so the level has plenty of green vegetation as well as props like wooden workbenches and sticks to fight with. This ethos is shown throughout each mission and corresponds with each of the 5 targets' elemental talismans. The game's HUD is thankfully minimal and the player could probably turn it off with some practice. I say thankfully because there are plenty of abstract mystical visuals the creators wisely allow the player to enjoy HUD-free. Visuals are heavily researched, contrasting and colourful while being practical, and were clearly made with love. Sifu's dodge feature is critical to progressing in Sifu. Unfortunately, this feature is only briefly covered in the opening tutorial, leading to some players getting frustrated and giving up at level 2. I feel like this could have been avoided had this been given more emphasis, letting the player know the perfect times to parry and dodge. As well as this, the camera can sometimes work against you, either zooming in too far or too far away. But honestly, I rarely felt this, so it's a minimal problem that could be fixed with the camera that sees through environments, letting you always keep your eyes on the fight and not a random column. The game has plenty of finishing moves, more than some AAA games. However, they still do eventually repeat and can lessen the experience of replaying levels. I'm not going to dock a point for this, as I'm sure it comes down to the animation budget, which they already have used greatly. It would also be nice to have more things to do at your Mahjong base between levels. You can practice moves and change outfits, but that's about it. It's a shame because the Mojang is a really nicely made area artistically speaking, with little interactivity. Again, I'm glad the bulk of the attention went to the combat system and gameplay, and so the missing features of the base can be forgiven. Sifu was one of the best games of 2022. A unique combat system that looks amazing and is fun to master. Paired with striking visuals and an authentic hair-raising soundtrack, Sifu should have won Indie Game of the Year. Now, I haven't played Stray, so my view is biased, however I'm still right. Sifu gets a 9 out of 10 and is a must-play. Building upon the foundations of Absolver, the company's first game, Sifu revitalizes the beat-em-up genre in the best way possible. Thank you, Sloclap. Please give us a sequel.
武艺高超、武德充沛之人，会令对手知难而退。他出手急如迅雷，不战而屈人之兵。